Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Sharifa Al-Haroon from Ahlia and Brunel University. I would like first to thank the organizer for this conference and for invitation to present. And also I would like to thank my supervisor, Dr. Lefteris Christus. Today I will be presenting my systematic literature review, the effect of remote work on power distance in Arabian Gulf countries. Power distance is defined as the extent to which individuals accept and expect that power is distributed unequally within an organization or a society. For example, in a high power distance organization, employee accept decision made by manager without resistance. In a low power distance organization, employee expect to have a role in a decision making and to be consulted by management. The idea of power distance came from the work of Hofstede, which my colleagues already talked about, in 1970s, based on a large scale across national study of IBM employees. It is one of the 6 dimensions used to classify culture within organization and society. Research has shown that many important outcomes in an organization are affected by power distance. For example, job satisfaction, team commitment, and employee self-confidence, innovation, life satisfaction, and so on. Therefore, it is important to understand the variables that affect power distance because they potentially have an effect on these important outcomes. My research question is, what is the effect on remote work on power distance in Arabian Gulf countries? A systematic literature review. This is a part of my PhD thesis on the effect of remote work on power distance in Bahrain public sector. Based on culture dimension literature, the Gulf countries are high power distance society, and organization in Gulf usually have a high power distance. For example, in our culture, young people listen to older out of respect. Remote work has been spreading throughout the Gulf during and after COVID-19, in addition to new hybrid models of work. Understanding how remote work impacts power distance in the Arabian Gulf, it is important because it's addressing the reflection between modern digital autonomy and the high power distance tradition. This research provides a necessary framework for GCC organization to navigate digital transform without losing culture value or organization efficiency. It is also important because of the previous mentioned research on the effect of power distance on important outcomes in the organization, such as innovation and job satisfaction and other. I did a systematic literature review using Prisma guidelines. I selected 4 major databases: Scopus, Web of Science, JSTOR, and Science Direct. I used 3 sets of keywords and combined them with Boolean operators. First, remote work and related terms. Second, power distance and related terms. And third, GCC countries individually and collectively. And then I read each paper's title, abstract, and keywords, and manually exclude irrelevant papers. The final list was 90 papers. The result First, there were no relevant papers before 2016. Because of the GCC constraint, this is when video calls become accepted in work environment, and researchers in the GCC started to look at this issue. Second, the interest in remote work increased during COVID and continue increasing after COVID. Third, Saudi Arabia and the UAE are the two countries that most studied in literature because of their large population and the high research spending. They have many universities and allocate a lot of money to research. Four, diverse sectors, but education it's the most because it is the easiest for the researcher to collect data. GCC researchers like to use survey and interviews on students and staff in universities. I found only 9 papers that directly address the research question. For example, a paper on effect of COVID-19 on organizational culture in Sultan Qaboos University in Oman. I divided the remaining 81 papers into 3 groups. Group 1, paper that looks at the impact of remote work on intermediate variables such as work-life balance or communication channels. Group 2, papers that look the relation between power distance and intermediate variables such as job performance, employee retention. And the group 3, remaining papers that are bridging between remote work and power distance, covering either directly such a paper studying the relation between the work-life balance and job performance in the GCC. The figure here is showing the variables that is found from researcher. The key findings. Finding 1, remote work does not automatically reduce the power distance. In many cases, it simply takes a new form. For example, studies from the UAE show that even if the employee work from home, manager continue to monitoring them using digital tools or regular report. This means that even when the office disappears, control does not. Finding 2, power distance shape how remote work is designed and experienced. Power distance is not just an outcome of remote work. It is also influence how remote work is designed and applied. In a high power distance settings, remote work policies often focus on control and monitoring rather than trust and independency. For example, a study in Saudi universities show that employees are expected to always be available to their supervisors online, which is keep power distance high even in virtual work environment. Finding 3, remote work outcomes depend on the context. For example, in sectors such as construction or healthcare, where tasks required physical attendance, remote work delivers a limited benefit. While in knowledge-based sectors, outcomes depend on leadership style, trust, and institution support. Remote work is not a universal solution. Its success depends on organization culture and gender norms. From the SLR, I found the following major gaps in the literature. Gap 1, the lack of direct analysis of remote work and power distance. As mentioned earlier, there are a lot of studies that look at the relation indirectly through intermediate variable, but only very limited attention to the direct relationship. Gap 2, the lack of longitudinal analysis on culture change. This is not unique to my research question, researchers in GCC lack to access and resources to be able to study how culture in an organization change over long period of time. Gap 3, limited research comparing sectors. Almost all papers focus on organization or sector only, one sector only. Very few collect data from multiple sectors and allows for compare. Gap 4, limited theory on how digital management affect people psychologically. Existing research focus on how digital tools like remote work affect workflow and productivity, but there is little research in the GCC on models of the psychological impact of digital monitoring. In my research, in my PhD research, I will focus in Gap 1 by gathering new data in Bahrain, and Gap 4 by combining different theory from other part of the literature on organization management. And thank you so much.